And look at there, we got our first nuclear fuel. Now, over the last couple of episodes, we've gotten into some steam power the old-fashioned way by producing some power using steam engines. And we've also gotten into the Create New Age mod. And with this, we're now taking that stress units that we were generating with the steam engines and turning it into raw, usable energy. But today I've got big automation plans because with the Create New Age mod, there's actually nuclear energy. That's right, nuclear power. We need to make a nuclear reactor so we can then produce a ton of heat. And with that heat, well, we can use it to do a few things. We can use it to superheat things that need superheating, or we can take this level 9 boiler and we can turn it into the max level, as you can see in the top left. Right now it's just a level 9, but we could go even further by just making it bigger, providing it with the maximum amount of heat. And wow, I've never done that before. So this thing would be kind of insane if we can get it all up and running. The main focus of today is actually just going to be producing these nuclear fuel. And this has an entire process of its own that actually seems kind of cool. And I really love create processes that work the way this one does. And that is to take the thorium material that we see right here. And we take this thorium, and as you can see, we actually get 2 for this current process right here, which means this is a looping operation. One of these thorium will always go back into the loop to then produce more. And these other resources are just simply renewable resources. Now, so far we have played around with all kinds of ways to route items, and that is going to be a big component of what we're about to do. Now, in this particular pack, we have a couple of options, and so far I've used 2 of them. You have regular create, which has belts and trains that you can use to move items around. You can also use rail carts and a couple of other nifty little contraptions to sort of move items around. But we've also experimented with ways of moving items around with immersive engineering, which has these really cool looking belts. And these belts have been very, very helpful in, for example, our Cobblestone generator, which is providing a ton of raw resources for us. Now, outside of this, well, we've also technically played around with another one of those options, and that is Tom's storage. Now, this one's a little bit more complicated as it does require a few more moving components in order to actually get fully up and running. Let me sort of show you with these 2 barrels right here. So really all we need to create a piping system that is one directional, by the way, with Tom's storage is to have an inventory connector. And then we also need some cables and then also a basic inventory hopper. And this is really it. So all we have to do is we can place a inventory connector on any of the inventories that are here. For example, this one right here. And then we're going to need a inventory hopper that is going to have to be on the bottom of this. Now, as you can see right here, this is not the correct way it needs to go. Unfortunately, this is sort of directional. I do think, though, it can, so long as the top face is the thing that is actively touching the block, it should work. So if we have a cable running along here, like so, and then this is connected in, and this is connected to the side, so long as this is touching that barrel, this should be able to pull the items out and put them inside of here. So you can have this on the bottom, on the top. It just has to be, the small side needs to be connected to the main inventory line. Now this can be filtered by right-clicking items on here. So if I do that, now what's filtered in this filter slot is these inventory cables. So if I put these in, it's not going to filter anymore. And if you shift right-click, you can clear that out. Now, I think this is also redstone controlled. So you should be able to give this a redstone signal to shut it off as well. I don't know if that will send a redstone signal through the wall here. Pretty sure that doesn't work that way. But yes, there are level emitters, so you can actually have this shut off if the inventory connected over here is filled up. So if this is filled up, you can have it send a redstone signal somewhere, which is another nifty little thing that you can do with these cables. Now, the way I want to use this is I want to take inventory contents from our storages over here. For example, our clay, right? We have clay. we have iron. And so we've already got the majority of this whole setup basically done. The only thing we really need is to sort of split off some more cobble to then be smelted in another assembly line. And then with that, we pretty much are set for producing these nuclear fuels. Now over here on our stone production, I've gone ahead and I've started playing around with some of the logistics of getting our cobblestone sort of split off into another path so we can start producing stone. Now this whole process is honestly kind of interesting if we continue using our conveyor belts for this, because it becomes sort of apparent that conveyor belts seem, at least at first, a little bit archaic, right? They don't really have a whole lot of options as far as logistics goes, or so you might think at first. And that is because we haven't really talked about the item router. Now, in this particular scenario, what would end up happening is if we were to feed cobblestone through, what will end up happening is if this goes into an inventory that gets full and we turn this on, this will then split over here, but this line will actually back up. You would think that it would continue to route on if this line is full, but that is actually not the case. What will actually end up happening is you will see this will just back up right here. And when the whole line backs up, then this can no longer drop items out onto the belt, which is kind of a problem, right? You can see right here, that'll just items hanging around. We don't really want that to happen. So there is a way that we can completely avoid this. And that is to utilize a item router. Now the item router is going to basically look at the inventory that is sort of nearest to it, and it will then just do like it says. It will then route the items in that direction. So for example, if I place an item router right here, you see it all has colored sides. Also, these are filterable, by the way, so you could use this to filter out a bunch of items. But in our case, this is going to split. And what's going to happen is it's going to look over here and it's going to say, okay, well, if this belt right here has room, then I'm going to send that split item over to that side. And we can see that clearly when we turn this on, you can see that items that are split ended up over here. But now since this belt line is full, it's not going to try and continue to send items over here. Once this belt line is completely full, it's going to continue splitting them out over here. So what I can actually do with this, and by the way, this is a bad example because what we're going to use is an actual block or interface here that will have a buffer that can't spill items out anywhere. And that's going to be the electric furnace. I'm going to use this to actually smelt these items. So making sure it's in its max mode. Now, whenever we send items, if I clear these out, for example, and put them back in here, we'll be able to see that this will fill this inventory first, like this. And then what it's going to do is it's going to try and route all of these items back through the belt. So if there's nowhere for it to go, it's still going to end up over here and being split, which is exactly what I want. And that should be more than enough to be able to split this whole section off and allow us to have some stone production. Now, as far as power goes, getting power to that thing, I'm just going to use some power from this windmill right here. So we have our nice little storage buffer. And if I put a cable on the bottom, I should hopefully be able to route this cable up here onto this. And then I can just route a node or connector right onto that. And we just need some more cabling, some wires, which I think we have. Yeah, we have copper wires right here. And then I'll just connect that up. And perfect. We now have enough power to start the production of this, and this is going to start producing stone. And the cool thing is this will actually input directly into a barrel. So we really don't have to worry too much about anything here. It's just going to automatically output to a barrel. And so if this buffer fills, no items are going to be spilling out. Because the thing I hate the most is just items spilling out in the world. That's really bad automation. Don't do that, especially on servers. So now that I technically have all of the sort of items ready to go, we just need to sort of set up the mixer. Now, this mixer is going to be very important to this whole endeavor because we have to make sure that a piece of thorium always makes it back into the initial setup. And so we are going to be receiving 3 solid items, and then we also need to receive a fluid, which I'm going to show you a neat way that you can actually do this here in a minute. Because as you see, we don't really have any slots, right? We're going to have an output slot right here. We're also going to have our 3 slots right here. And technically the bottom is a slot, so we could use the bottom in some way. However, I'm not going to do it that way. And then we also, technically, this is the cool part, the top is a slot. So you can utilize the top and it does not interfere with your mixer at all. So yes, you can have an item or a block or a pipe hint, hint, right there on the top. And so we're going to use that cleverly for our water production in here. Now, as far as the way we're going to send the items out, I'm going to send it out onto a belt. I think that's going to be the best way to interact with Create, and I'm going to show you why. So let's grab a belt. And I don't think I have any made because I haven't really used mini belts, and for good reason. These can be very laggy, so definitely use them in moderation. If you right click a wrench, you can change the output side of the basin. And so I want it going here, and this is where I'm going to use an andesite tunnel. So a tunnel is a pretty cool little thing. The tunnel will always split off one item off of a stack. And so what we should have is whenever these two items that is being produced from this goes onto this belt, it will then get split into two separate items or two separate stacks. So we're going to have one thorium go this way and one thorium go this way, so long as we put an item here. And what I want to do is I want to use this to loop our thorium. And one of the best ways to do that is by using a create item yeeter. It's not called an item yeeter, but it's called a weighted ejector, and it's probably one of my favorite items in Create. The weighted ejector allows you to select a location, for example, right here. And if I place this here, it will be connected to the belt to receive power. It will then fling the item onto this depot. And so this will actually split off onto the weighted ejector and will then send over here. And if you want to get very specific with these also have stack sizes. So we can always guarantee that only one item ever ends up on here and then gets flung over here. Not necessarily in this use case, but this is actually very useful in getting into item logistics with Create. It does have a whole lot of play, especially when you use brass funnels or brass tunnels. Those are when the actual setting of the stack size can get very powerful. Now, to keep things out of the way, I'm actually going to pull off the belt from the side. And if you don't put anything facing out and this barrel was to ever fill up, it would start to spew items everywhere. And a way that we can prevent it from spewing items everywhere is by putting a block here. Or in my case, a trapdoor also works. That way it'll just hold the items right here, and this whole operation should just come to a halt. And yet again, not spill items all over the ground, which is a really bad thing, by the way. Now, these other depots are going to contain our clay and our stone for this operation. Outside of that, we're almost ready to go. There's still a few more things, however, because to be able to take this even further, we then need to crush the thorium, which only gives us a 10% chance, by the way. And then we also need to combine this with iron sheets. So when I say item logistics, well, we're going to be using those quite a bit in this setup. Now, knowing how this looks right now, I'm actually going to take this whole thing and I'm going to scoot it back against the wall. So the setup for the clay, I'm actually going to craft it using a press. And this is just one other mechanic that you can use to craft items. However, it's probably best that you set the recipe on the basin for this, so that way you don't end up with any kind of weird things ever happening. So if you are going to be doing a single recipe, you can either go about it doing it this way by hand placing an item, or you can make a list of items if you're going to have multiple things going through the press here. So what's going to happen? The items are going to get routed into this basin, and we can do that using an inventory connector. And then whenever it is done compacting that, it will then spit it onto here. And what I should be able to do is I should be able to hopefully route this item in. And when I say route the item in, I mean use a funnel. And by the way, the reason I do not use brass funnels for everything is because andesite funnels, believe it or not, have a usable function, and brass funnels have their other usable functions. So there are times where you definitely don't need a brass funnel, and there's possibly times where it may be more beneficial to actually use an andesite funnel due to their properties over the properties of a brass funnel. Now, interestingly enough, the more I think about it, the more I'm actually probably going to want crushing wheels to be extended onto this belt. That way, whenever this does go through, it will just be immediately crushed down into the radioactive thorium, and then it's going to produce these three items right here. So on this belt line, as soon as we have the crushing wheels, we're going to need to make sure we collect those items. And then I just want to immediately turn these thorium, which is the only thing they're used for, to be turned directly into nuclear fuel. So we are going to need some iron sheet production. And by the way, a neat little trick with the belts, if we want to extend them, is to just simply right click them. And so right here, I want my crushing wheels. And then we're going to have 1, 2, 3, And this will allow me to put the items back here on the back. Now for filtering, the use of these limited barrels will actually work out very nice. So if you put some of these items in, you can go into the settings and under the memory slot, and you can actually make sure that this is a locked drawer. So this is how you lock drawers with inside of the sophisticated storage mod. Which goes right here, memory slot, and then we select once the item is in. Or you can drag the item in as well from JEI. That also works. So with this, we're almost done with this production line, because this production line is actually going to extend all the way over here. And we need to take a setup and build a setup that produces iron sheets, utilizing our iron production from over here that also decompresses this. And we can do that with a regular mechanical crafter. But we also then need to make the assembly line that crafts these. So we are going to need a processing assembly line that takes in the thorium, receives the iron plates, and then smashes it down into nuclear fuel. Now, this is a very basic setup. In theory, we have these items right here. It's going to run through an assembly line. The items are going to come out of here, and they're going to end up over here. But up top, it's a little bit more advanced, right? So I basically have a depot up here. It's going to receive items from a mechanical crafter, and we need to filter out the iron plates that are going to be produced. So these iron sheets, for example, those are going to only be pulled off of the depot and put onto the deployer once they have been smashed by the press that is up here. Now, the mechanical crafter is going to be needed here to convert the iron blocks that we are producing over here. And we are going to pull these iron blocks out and send them over here. Now, you could possibly bypass this step by only pulling out iron nuggets out of this. But in this case, I do want to pull out the blocks and have the blocks sent over here. And we're going to be doing all of this with Tom storage. Now, since this is one of the easier ones to actually reach, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to place an inventory connector onto the mechanical crafter. Now, the way the mechanical crafter works is it's going to craft down the item. So it's going to receive those iron blocks, and it's going to convert 1 iron block into 9 iron ingots, and then it's going to automatically send it into the depot. When the depot is completely filled and cannot receive more items, this will no longer continue to craft, by the way. So it's also another nice gating situation here. But what I basically need to do is I need to pull the iron out of here, and the best way to do that is by using this and making sure we filter it, specifically only pulling out iron blocks by right-clicking it onto here. And then I want to route the items around. What I want to do, though, is I think I want to take this cable and I want to have it drop down into here. And I kind of want to hide these. Now, one of the best ways to hide them, which I don't know if it works with all blocks, but I do want to try and test this out. There are some of these framed inventory cables that we're supposedly able to use to sort of hide our sort of cables. And so if I connect these here and run them along, I don't know if they will take on the look of a stair, for example. It doesn't look like they do. It looks like it has to be full blocks possibly. Or maybe there has to be, oh, do these have to be combined with a block? Potentially as well? Oh no, it can be painted. Oh, so we need a paint kit. Okay, so that's something new. So yeah, it's going to require a few of these items here. Nice. So I'm guessing shift right click to select the block, or maybe not. Let's see, paints blocks to match their surroundings. So is it like right click? I have no idea. Let's go ahead and get this pipe put in right here and shift right click. Okay, so it does not work on stairs. It does look like it is only solid blocks. You can see I can select these blocks, but I cannot select the slabs or stairs. Looks like we're going underground then. So the cool part about this is all of these cables right here, they can be combined with sticks, which we have so many of. And these can be colored. So they will actually look like they are the wall and you would never even know they existed. And I kind of like that. I like the ability to be able to do this. So I should be able to just go, okay, I need stone here. That is going to be made into stone, and they are completely covered. So now as soon as I get this fully connected in, I think that was the last piece. This should, as you can see right here, should have the iron block now placed inside of this mechanical crafter. Oh, and this is just perfect. This is like the fundamental idea that I really wanted to sort of push in this episode. Now, there is a little bit of a problem here, though. The way that this inventory connector works is it is basically looking for all inventories that is actually connected to the main inventory, and that means all of these are actually counted as an inventory. Now, the way to fix this is to use an inventory cable connector, and this should only work on this particular cable. Now, the other problem that shows up with this is to get this to work, we actually need an inventory connector on the main system, and then that actually allows us to work. So we are going, this is basically like a controller block, and now this will actually only send to this one thing, whereas this actually sends to this, and this, unfortunately. So now that this is connected in, we can actually go ahead and connect this barrel over here, which is going to connect into this place right here, and then so on and so forth for the other items that are all the way over here. They need to make their way underground and also make their way into this setup as well. So after running a long line of connectors, there we go, that is now connected up, and I am running these corner to each other, like you can see here, so they do not connect to one another, as I do want to keep them separate networks. So this is all starting to fall in place. I have my stone now routed. This is going to automatically deposit onto here, and then this is going to get collected when it turns into blocks. Now, we still don't have the water yet, or I haven't placed the thorium in yet, but all of this is basically coming from up here. So I have cables that are routed into this container, which is producing stone, and that is all running down here and is all completely covered up, which looks fantastic. That also runs all underground, which I've got to all clean up, and this runs all the way up here. So while we don't have like any way to sort of wirelessly send things, unfortunately, at least as far as I know, at least we have these cables. So it makes stretching items a little bit simpler. Otherwise, Create would be an absolute spaghetti mess to try and do this same operation. So I think I got the last connector in. So I have this connector, and this has turned out to be way more complicated than I thought it was going to be, but that's due to our limited ability to route items around. But as you can see right here, this is ready to go. That's got clay balls ready to be compacted. This has my stone. I now have these items ready to be filtered out. This is going to be the thorium that is going to make its way over here to then be produced. And well, hopefully this is enough to at least produce a small amount of these. If we speed this up to max speed, hopefully that will be quick enough. But speaking of speed, we've actually now got to, well, power everything, and that's its own problem. Thankfully, though, we do have this power that is running in over here. We have a speed controller right here. I am going to hook in a separate speed controller specifically for this and possibly power it right here and then run all of our other power to everything else. So now after placing in a gearbox, I'm running this down here through a chain, and it's connected directly up to my my chain driver or speed controller. So this should be correct in the direction. So now we just need to crank it all the way up. Yes, I do want to make this as fast as I possibly can. And then I just need to connect into here. Now, something nice is that we have this casing that runs up here. So connecting this in is honestly quite easy. Now, I think I want to make sure that I can get some rotational power over here. So instead of just connecting directly to this, for example, with a cogwheel, I want to make sure that I can also drag some of this power from here also onto this. So what I might do is I will use myself a gearbox, but first I'm going to attach this here so I can attach it to the shaft. And so we have that running, and to connect to this, I should be able to use an encased chain drive, and I can place this here and then just rotate it, and that'll allow me to get a shaft going straight onto this, just like that. And that now has that all compacted, and you can see that did compact everything up, and it has dropped that in there, and we now have the clay sent. The only limiting factor now is how fast these pipes can actually send items, which is not the fastest. Now, thankfully for this is probably one of the easiest things that we could be setting up right now. And that is because to be able to fully speed this up and have this rotating correctly, we just need to tap in using a chain drive like so. And we need to make sure this chain drive actually goes up. Now, in cases like this, I'm not actually quite sure. There we go. I was about to say, I don't know how I'm able to disconnect from that, but there we go. We were able to do that. I just need to route this up. So we'll connect it directly in to that, and that is spinning in the correct direction. automatically for us, which is going to connect to our belt and everything along this path, which is going to be up top. Now, we are going to need to power these separately, so we will need a separate chain drive up the back there. But if I go ahead and break this belt, we can see that is now spinning the appropriate direction, and we can really tell whenever we put the belt in and put a shaft in the center, and you can see it is spinning the right way. And I just need to carry this on up. That will power this main section right here, and we'll just connect right on in. I mean, this is amazing. Sometimes with this stuff, you just get super lucky. So I'm going to break through here, make sure these are flipped the correct way, like that. And then to power these machines, what I'm going to need to do is break through here, and then we are going to have another chain drive that runs along the backside. And then this is going to have a shaft that leads in. And that should basically be it. And that should have everything powered and ready to rock and roll. Look at this. Oh, yeah. And we also need to, well, add something over here as well. So what I can do is just on the back, let's add 2 more chain drives right here. And I can just extend a shaft through the middle here, and then add a cogwheel. And you can see that has now sent everything over and is now producing the iron sheets that are going to be needed for automation. There's still one more thing left to do, and that is to get the water pumping into here. And we can use the same system we used for our sort of generators. We basically need a block that our thing is going to go onto. I think I can hold down crouch. Can I jump up in here? Perfect. So yes, I need my pump to be facing the right way. Let's see if we can't get in here. Oh goodness. This is a bit of a cramped space, but there we go. So the pump needs to be facing down because we are going to be pumping from a water source, and then we need to route our pipes around. So I'm going to rotate that. And this is that cool part I was talking about, that we can actually pipe water directly into the middle of this. So if you thought that you couldn't use that space, you 100% can. Okay, and just like that, now we should be able to get water in. I should be able to place 3 water sources, one here, or 2 water sources, and this will infinitely generate right here, providing infinite water into our basin. And then we also need a funnel right here that is pulling the stone in, and then we need a funnel right here that is going to pull our thorium in that will get slung over here. Now, I'm going to probably have to make sure that there's enough room for our thorium to be sent over here, but we'll see after we get this going if this is enough room. I'm pretty sure this lantern is 100% going to get in the way, so I'll be sure to move it somewhere else, for example, there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this set up. So water, infinite water. We now have water in here. We have our other items. And so the moment of truth is to simply put the thorium on this belt and let it happen. So there it went. And this is enough room. You can see it shoots the item right over here. Oh no, it is bouncing off of the chain drive, unfortunately. But I don't know if there's a good way for me to really fix that. Just hope that it does stop if this ever does get full. But we should be sending this over. And look at there, we got our first nuclear fuel already. Oh, this is fantastic. Now, just a little bit of math that you may want to know, and just from researching on my own, apparently each one of these fuel cells right here inside of one of the nuclear fuel rods, they are going to last 10 minutes. So we need to make sure that we can, for whatever size reactor we plan on making, we need to make sure that we can supply at least the amount per rod of these fuel rods within a 10-minute period. So that's how long they're going to last. We need to make sure we can reproduce those and keep them constantly flowing in. And we're already at 3, and I don't know how many per minute we're currently producing. I might have to do the math here. So now, after letting a timer run for about 10 minutes, I was able to kind of calculate roughly how many was actually produced, and it looks about like 25 with this particular setup. Now, given that it's a 10% chance per operation, and when I say 10% chance, it is a chance, that means there is some variability here. So yeah, don't hold me to it being exactly 25, because it could have been 22 because of the way percentages work and random game mechanics. We've all been there. We know how that works. But this does help me understand that we can probably at least produce about 20 of these per 10 minutes, which is great because that's way more than enough to produce a regular decent, like sized reactor from the New Age mod. Now, another awesome perk of this actual setup is that every time it does a process, we are getting XP. So this is also an experience farm. I don't even know what else to say other than it is just producing XP every operation, which is just fantastic. But now that we have ourselves fuel rods, we have this all ready to go, it is now time to start working on actually building the reactor. But that is going to have to wait until next episode, because today we are effectively all out of time. But I really hope you did enjoy today's episode, and if you did, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Dazani? I hope I got that right. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on Discord and by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so much for supporting this content, as it really does help me continue to push out episodes into this mini episodes. It really does help out a lot. And thanks to you guys for watching. And well, with that, I will see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.